Well, thank you, Miss Diane, for joining me today. I would like to share your brilliance with the world, and so I have put together 6 questions that I would like to ask you. What is your core area of expertise, your zone of genius, that you bring to your students or clients?
My expertise is in the area of coercive control. A lot of services provide urgent care, like crisis care for coercive control. I support survivors of violence or survivors of coercive control in their pathway towards recovery. But my genius, I believe, is in understanding the mindset behind coercive control from the perpetrator perspective. Not many people do that. And as a behavioural profiler, I'm very, very keen to understand why do they do what they do? What is their mindset? What is their benefit-driven mindset? What's the benefit of their behaviour? And by helping women who've been through that understand what's happened, why, how it affects us, and what they need to do in order to handle this person, there's not many people doing that.
What is your professional background? And what was your aha moment that led you to become a coach or a trainer in this field?
My professional background, I started out as a commercial artist and a piano teacher. Yeah. So that's where I started. Now, what I discovered about myself was that I actually like people. So I ended up moving into nursing. Yeah. That developed my people skills. But when I was going through family violence, one of the things about family violence is the body reflects what you're going on emotionally in your life. Yeah. And my back broke down, basically. I injured myself as a nurse. So that meant that I had to look at doing something else. Now, what I had discovered about myself is I love people. And so I wanted a people job. That's where coaching came in. And I started coaching in order to heal myself from what I had been through, 27 years worth of family violence. So I wanted to plot my way forward. What I discovered within coaching and within behavioural profiling is that it helped me to understand what happened, why it's easy for women or anybody basically to fall prey to a predator using coercive control. Yeah. And I also underwent cult abuse as well. So, coercive control on steroids, basically. But what I have discovered, this is the interesting part, is you don't know how your journey is going to direct you through this funny, wiggly little path, and it all makes sense afterwards. And what happened was, first of all, I went through recovering from family violence, and then I discovered when I left my cult that the knowledge that I had, the expertise I had about family violence is so perfectly applied to cult recovery, and to understanding cult leaders. So there's just no difference. Oh, there is one difference, and that is that spiritual abuse, we're talking about something that's unseen, unknown, so there's that added layer of complexity in helping people recover from spiritual abuse. But honestly, coercive control, universal, and once you understand that universality of it, like I lived and worked in foreign countries. My husband was African, French speaking African from a Muslim background, and all the complexities. So my life, when I look back at it, was this encapsulation of multiculturalism, understanding coercive control, understanding the universality of coercive control, because I experienced it in different areas of the world. So I don't know, it's just like this lovely encapsulation of all of the things that I do now, And the reason I mentioned art and music is because I incorporate my art and music in the recovery process with my clients. I found that extraordinarily valuable. I didn't know how it would become, how it would work, but I was absolutely certain that somehow putting into music or putting into art form, a form of expression that doesn't require words, was going to work better. Yeah. So that's how I incorporated it. And I found it extraordinarily powerful. It blew me away. So I use my little package of knowledge and expertise and I use my people skills that I gained from nursing it's all the package basically. Yeah. So my funny, wiggly little life has become clearer as I look back and see, oh, this was part of the path that I was meant to take in order to be who I am today, in order to provide the assistance that I do today. Yeah.
My next question is, what makes you the blue unicorn in your field, or what is your superpower?
I would come back to the superpower is getting inside the mindset of a perpetrator of violence, yeah, and understanding how they work, what drives them, and why. I think this is so important to the current changes that are happening in the family violence sector. Why you cannot deal with a perpetrator of violence, in the same as if they are rational, logical, and reasonable people. You can't. It's just not possible. And the current legal system, the current system of support that exists, assumes that when you separate a couple, that the couple going through family court are both rational, logical, and reasonable people. Yeah? That's a huge misconception, huge. Because if you then make orders for rational, logical people, reasonable people, you find that those orders are never going to work because you've got one lunatic in the mixed bag. So I would say that's my superpower, is getting into the mindset of the perpetrator of violence, understanding what the limitations are in having to deal with that person and why it has to be different, why it's absolutely vital that it is different.
What industry myths or misconceptions do you love to challenge through your training?
The most common question when I speak publicly, there's always a man in the audience, or always someone in the audience. Pauline Hanson would say the same thing. But there are women who are violent too. You can't say it's just a gendered thing. And I get so annoyed with that because it's a myth. It's a myth. That there's an equal amount of perpetrators amongst women compared to men. It's a myth, but it's a myth that hangs around. If you look at the statistics, I'm getting a bit lost here, but if you look at the statistics, yes, there are perpetrators of both male and female. Yes, there are, but the difference is that a lot of the violence that happens against men is inflicted by men. That's where it varies. It looks like it's equal, but it's actually not. If you look at who's inflicting the harm, it's generally men inflicting harm upon that man. Yeah. There's a few myths that I really don't like. Oh, why doesn't she leave? That type of thing. Yeah, that myth is so frigging annoying because it doesn't understand the level of control or the level of fear that people have. When you're talking about conditioning, this is the thing that I break apart actually in my trainings. That's the question that comes up: why didn't she just leave? The understanding of the level of conditioning. How conditioning happens. I tell a story about the elephant with a chain around its leg, and how it's a baby when it gets that chain around its leg, yeah? And then it discovers that chain limits its freedom to move. So it becomes conditioned over the years that it continues to have that chain around its leg until finally, as an adult, that chain can't hold it, but it believes it can hold it. It's the same level of conditioning. If you're constantly punished for any independent thinking, if you expect to be punished every time you do something, finally you don't want to do anything at all. You're afraid to do anything. So a woman who's so deeply conditioned in that situation is going to be afraid, one, to leave, but certainly to do anything else. And They attach fear to leaving because they think it's going to stir up the monster inside their abuser. And they know that. They absolutely know that. So it's a matter of choosing between staying where I know he is, I know he's in the next room, I know where he is, or moving out, taking the risk of possibly worse harm coming to you, but certainly not knowing where he's going to come from. There's more fear attached to that. There's so much uncertainty that staying at home where you are familiar with the surroundings, where you know where the kids' school is, you know where the food is, all that sort of stuff. There's certainty there, and we need some level of certainty in our lives, even if there's chaos all around us. Yeah. So I think I like blowing that one away. I really, really do. And I like helping people to understand that it's not simply a choice of staying or leaving. There's so much more attached to that one decision. So much more. Yeah.
If you could speak directly to one person in a company who truly needs what you offer, who would it be? What would you say to get their attention? And why are they the person who needs to hear it first?
The person who really needs my assistance would be the person or people. There would be a number of people in a company going through what I serve. So I'd be looking, it can't be the person who needs the help, it'd have to be the person who has the ability to deliver that assistance, yeah? So it would have to be HR, yeah, it would have to be HR, someone in charge of making decisions or providing a system of support and educating those people. I think education is so important, understanding why you need it. Also, I speak to people, I've spoken to CEOs and stuff like that before, and one of the first things I say is, do you realize that workaholism is one of the key signs that something's going on at home? And a lot of people are surprised about that because most people who are going through family violence at home enjoy their work. Most people enjoy their work. They feel like themselves at work. They know they can do what they can do. It's a place where they feel confident and where they feel at peace with themselves, where they can express their character and personality and their skills, so they feel confident. So where do you want to stay if you know that you're going home to a really crappy situation? You want to stay at work. If anybody says, anybody want to do overtime? Oh, yeah, I'll do overtime. Thank you very much, So a lot of people are surprised when I say that. They're surprised. But honestly, it's one of the key signs that I would be looking for. So letting people know what are the key signs that you're looking for, and they're not always obvious. They're not always obvious. So first of all, I would start with education about what are the signs. What are the ones that you're not expecting to see, but are indicators that you should further explore? Yeah. And then take it from there. I think that's helpful. Yeah. So once they have the skills to be able to recognize what's going on for their workforce, they're more able to then provide a system of support or at least have a quiet conversation.
Can you share a moment or story where you knew... Start again. Can you share a moment or story where you knew your work had made a real difference, something that captures why what you do matters?
One of my clients had been strangled by her abuser. Yeah, this is common. Okay, so it could be anybody, fortunately for me, in telling this story. But it's very, very common. So as you can imagine, if you're undergoing strangling, the thing that you're trying to do is survive. It's a desperate effort to survive. So that triggers this response, fighting for life, fighting to defend yourself, really making every effort to survive this threat against your well-being and your survival, actually. Yeah. So that's a trigger. And unfortunately, that becomes embedded in the area that was pressured. Yeah. So she did survive, fortunately, obviously. But what happened was that's embedded in the neck. Okay. So anytime someone touches the neck, yeah, because it triggers off the anchor that is embedded in the neck, a physical anchor of the emotion that's trapped in there, anytime someone just does that, yeah, it triggers off that fight for survival, and sometimes they can become quite aggressive, because they're taken back to that moment in time when they're fighting for their survival. Yeah. Anyway, so I discovered that, and I saw that was a major problem, and I know that's a problem for a number of other people in the group that I was working with. So I decided I would do a collapse anchor strategy on her. And I did that publicly to show everybody else how it happens. And so I went through the process. I won't explain it all, but I went through the process where you rebalance the body, and then you collapse this anchor that is existent in the neck, and it sounds bizarre, but it works. It works a charm. Anyway, by the time I finished that process, I tested it, and she could rub this like crazy and nothing happened. Anybody could touch it and nothing happened. So that made a huge difference. And the reason it made a huge difference is because she had young children, and young children do this. You get it? So I saw that. I saw the results of what I did, and I thought, oh my God, I have just made a huge difference. I was so blown away. And what I did the following week with all the rest of the group, because they were so excited by what they saw, we did a collapse anchor for all of them. And they came back the following week all laughing. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? But it made a difference to everybody. But that one case, I thought, this is why I'm here, to listen, to learn, to observe, to see what the problems are, and then to pull out of my bag of tools that I've built up over a period of time what applies to that particular situation, in order to help that person have a better quality of life, and make a difference. It makes me a bit teary, actually, but it's kind of cool.